Hey everyone, welcome back to Elder Scrolls Online, and this is my Magicka Templar build video. So I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. So for the race, my Templar is a High Elf. I would recommend, a High Elf is probably the best for a Magicka Templar. I should note that this is a, damage dealer, not a healer build or anything. So I would recommend a High Elf, a Breton, or a Dunmer. For the ideal race, and I have all of my points into Magicka, so 64 points into Magicka. As for the Mundus Stone, I have the Atronach. I chose the Atronach Mundus because after the Homestead patch, I noticed that Magicka recovery has gone down since the last patch, so that is the best Mundus Stone to use in my opinion. For the food, I use Purple Tri-Stat food, which increases all of your primary stats, so Magicka, health, and stamina. And I like that because in PvP, stamina is kind of important also, so that gives you a nice boost to all three of your stats. And as for the gear, I am using 2 Valken Scoria, 5 Rattlecage, and 5 Kagranak's Hope. So this is a heavy armor build, so I'm running 5 heavy and 2 light. Of course, if you do the Undaunted stuff, if you do veteran dungeons and you have, Undaunted, if you have Undaunted metal, then I would recommend 5 heavy, 1 light, and 1 medium. But as you can see, I don't have that, so I'm just running 5 heavy and 2 light. I have Rattlecage on my chest, gloves, and the 3 rings. If you can, I recommend getting all of the jewelry in purple, but I didn't. I have 2 blue gems and 1 purple, but if you can, try to get them in purple. And yeah, that's it. So just the chest, the gloves, or the gauntlets, and the 3 pieces of jewelry are Rattlecage. And then Kagranak's Hope, I have the waist in light, the shoes in light, and heavy greaves. And I have a Kagranak's Hope lightning staff, and the sword and shield is also Kagranak's Hope. I believe I have all of my armor gear with a max Magicka glyph, including the shield. And for the weapons, I have increased spell damage for both weapons, although you can also put a disease damage glyph on your sword. That, I believe that inflicts minor defile, which reduces the amount of healing that your opponent will take, so that's also a good option. And for PvP, all of my gear is usually impenetrable, except the hat here, which I could only get in infused. And I have the shield as sturdy, which reduces the block cost. For my jewelry, I have 1 that has Magicka recovery glyph, and the other 2 have spell damage. And one thing I do recommend is try to get your weapons to be golded out. If you cannot get the rest of your gear to be gold, at least try to get your weapons golded out to do the most amount of damage and be more effective. Alright, for the skills, I'll start with the lightning staff. And for the first slot, I have Radiant Aura, and this is a skill that I've been kind of playing around with because Magicka Sustain is lower in this patch. Radiant Aura places minor Magicka Steal on the enemies around you for 18 seconds, and it restores 400 Magicka, so that gives you Magicka back every 1 second that this debuff is on your opponent. And you also gain minor Fortitude, minor Endurance, and minor Intellect, which increases your health, stamina, and Magicka recovery by 10%, so this is a big change. Before this patch, I used, I forgot the name of it, the other morph, where it doesn't cost you anything, and it restores stamina and health. Repentance. Okay, it's called Repentance, I remember now. But this build here kind of relies on Radiant Aura so you can keep up your sustain, and it's probably the most effective if you're playing in a small group, like 4 people. If you're playing in a small group, try to keep Radiant Aura up if you have as many enemies or more as you, because this will help both you and your allies. So that's definitely a good skill to have. I have Reflective Light on my second slot, which deals flame damage over time and also reduces movement speed by 40%. So that's a good skill to have on your bar, so you can snare your enemy, slow them down, deal damage over time, and that also can proc your Valkynscoria. So that's definitely a good skill to have. On slot number three, I have Toppling Charge, which is your gap closer, and while it's kind of buggy sometimes, it deals a decent amount of damage, and it's, it's the best you can do for Magicka Templar. On the fourth slot, I have Puncturing Sweep, which is your spammable DPS. It doesn't do, that much damage, but it's decent. It's a decent skill. On the last slot, I have Radiant Glory, which it's, your execute. They nerf the damage, but it still does decent amount of damage if you're just trying to finish off your opponent. Don't spam it from, full health on your target, because you're not going to do any damage. But it's still a decent skill to have on your bar. And I like this morph because it also heals you while you do damage, so that's useful if you're being attacked by multiple enemies. You can kind of keep up a little bit of a heal as you try to finish off your target. And I actually have the wrong skill on here. I have Radial Sweep, which isn't a bad skill. It does a decent amount of damage, but I really want to have the Eye of the Storm skill on here, but I don't have it unlocked yet. As you can see, I don't have a lot of skills unlocked. You should, of course, have all of your passives. But once I do, I'm going to have Eye of the Storm on here, so that should do a decent amount of damage if you're trying to take on larger groups than yourself. So that's what I recommend, having Eye of the Storm as your ultimate. Alright, so for my sword and shield bar, I have Honor the Dead, which does a nice heal on yourself or a wounded ally. And I recommend this morph because it restores 60% of the Magicka cost if you heal someone below 75%. So that kind of reduces the cost of the skill. For the second skill, I have Luminous Shards, and as you might know, they kind of nerfed Blazing Spear to not do a stun anymore. So that's why I chose this morph, because you still have a stun on it, and I like being able to stun, so that's why I chose this morph. And the skill also restores some stamina, and an additional amount of stamina and Magicka, so it's still a good skill to have. I like this morph, because for me, I think it's nice to have a CC ability on my bar. For the third slot, I have Extended Ritual, which it's pretty important to have this. It heals you for a certain amount of time, and it also removes negative effects on you and your allies if they activate the synergy, so I definitely recommend this skill on your bar. If not this, then Purge, but Purge is kind of expensive, so I like having this skill. I have Elusive Mist, which is, you kind of need this for a Magicka Templar. Oh, and of course you have to be a vampire, so I definitely recommend being a vampire for this build. And Elusive Mist removes snares, and it increases your movement speed while you're in the mist form, and it reduces the damage you take by 75% while you're in the mist form. So this is definitely a good skill to have. It takes a little bit of practice to use this. And I should also note that while you're in the mist form, your Magicka recovery is disabled, so it might take you a little bit to get used to using this skill. But once you do, you'll notice it's pretty necessary to have this. And the final skill I have is Channeled Focus, and I was very torn between which morph to use, this one or I think it's Restoring Focus. I chose this one in the end because while you stand in it, you restore Magicka every 0.5 seconds, and again, because Magicka recovery is kind of lower this patch, I chose this morph because it's nice to have the Magicka recovery. And you can kind of be a little flexible about your ultimate. I chose Shooting Star for when I'm playing solo, but you can also use Solar Prison, which is it has a nice damage dealing synergy. So I like to use this when I'm kind of defending a keep maybe, or basically when there's a lot of players around and I'm in a keep, because if you drop it in a small space and somebody activates the synergy, it'll deal a lot of damage, as you can see. Alright, now let's take a look at the champion points. I should note I'm not the best at like the champion system, so this might not be the best setup, but this is kind of what I use. So I put 93 points into Magician, 60 points into Arcanist, 20 into Tumbling, and 27 into Shadow Ward. I put 20 into Blessed, 14 into Elfborn, 96 into Elemental Expert, and 50 into Spell Erosion, and 20 into Shattering Blows, which kind of increases the damage you do against damage shields. So that's kind of good if you're fighting sorcerers, Magicka sorcerers. In the Steed, I have 33 points into Resistant, 27 into Thick-Skinned, 60 into Hardy, and 60 into Elemental Defender. And also 20 into Quick Recovery, which will kind of increase the healing that you receive. So those are my champion points. And I believe that is all the information I have for you. If I forgot anything, please let me know in the comments below, or if you have any other questions, and I will try to answer them as best as I can, or point you into some direction, or like to some other video that could answer it better than I could. So I hope you enjoyed this build. Please leave me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and I will see you guys soon in the next video. Bye!